Hi everyone, welcome to Write Our Way, which will be hosted by fictional writer Patrick Starks. If you have not read the description below, these podcast discussions will be surrounded around writing short stories and novels, discussions of storytelling through film, using comparisons from the 80s and the current movies we see today, as well as discussions about how these movies impact our lives, or if not, why. If you are a writer, a reader, or neither of the two, who is looking for some inspiration, a little motivation, something that will get you excited about writing, something that will help you develop and feel confident in your own style, then you have come to the right place. My friends, welcome to Write Our Way.
Hello everyone, welcome. My name is Patrick Starks and welcome to Write Our Way. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite topics to discuss with other writers. We're going to be talking about protagonists, antagonists, and the anti-hero. And the most beautiful thing that I love about this, guys, is that the protagonist is the hero, as we all know, and antagonist is the villain, but the anti-hero comes out to be a combination of both, which we'll talk about. I just find that very interesting, and I feel like that's something a lot of people can relate to today. I feel like the anti-hero is more close to actual reality versus the actual hero themselves. And the villain, I'm not gonna lie, the villain is always gonna hit home. The villain, we do have people that are just damn right, evil in the world. So I feel the protagonist at most times relates to the actual writer themselves. Like, they actually relate to you. They are almost like this part of you that you've always wanted to show to the world but never really get to, or I don't know how I feel. It's kind of like you're putting on the costume. It's like very cosplay. The character that you're writing about for the protagonist is definitely more of a character that you wish you could have played. So I think it's something really cool about that. The cool thing about the hero is that we get to show like the trials and tribulations. And I think one of the biggest challenges for writers when they're writing about the protagonist is that they're trying to find this balance of like, how do I make them feel more real to the audience? How do I bring the audience to that hero and make them feel connected with that hero? And a lot of times it's just build up. I would say the build up is the audience basically witnessing that protagonist go from 0 to 100. They're like this nobody, they're bullied, or they had a thing in their life where they might have lost somebody, and through that trial they come up and discover a part of themselves they never knew, or discover a part of themselves that helps them overcome those traumatic situations that they dealt with in their life. And I think that's one of the biggest things that connects people to the protagonist is just that, because we all can relate to that. These painful things in our lives that let us see another part of ourselves that we didn't know we had. It actually brings out this heroic part of us. And I hate to say it, but in reality, it's hit or miss. It depends on the person as well, because there's sometimes the traumatic situations which can also shift the character into an antagonist point of view. They become a lot more hostile, a lot more like villain-like. A good example of that, the Joker. The Joker, let me compare let's say Spider-Man. Both the Joker and Spider-Man were basically bullied. People didn't really like them that much. They were kind of like the nerds or the oddballs of where they were. The difference is how they both shifted. Spider-Man went more of the protagonist route. He got bullied and stuff like that, but he went more of the approach like, I just want to stop all the evil and the crime in a good way, not a bad way. And with the Joker, his outcome to being bullied was fighting violence with violence. Like, okay, you're going to be violent to me, I'm going to be violent to you now, and I'm going to do it 10 times worse. And so from a standpoint, it looks... The Joker is such an interesting character because he's somewhat of an anti-hero, but not really. Because I felt like when I watched the movie with, I think the actor's name is Joaquin Phoenix. If I'm pronouncing that wrong, please let me know. But when I watched that film, I was like, okay, I kind of understand where the Joker is going. I don't feel like he's villain all the way. I felt very much like he was an anti-hero. What stripped him of the anti-hero was basically his aggression and his need for like violence and just gore. It was like, he could have been good until he started, killing these guys in like such brutal ways. It's like, all right, that's not really what we're here for. I think it's just such an interesting thing to talk about and such an interesting dynamic when we're writing these stories, because it just goes to show you that the protagonist or the antagonist can be shifted into, many different ways. And I think that's something beautiful about these stories that we can all take from. And so, me just going off the antagonist, again, the antagonist is one of the characters that I feel, how should I say, it's in the middle. They're not all that bad, but what's a good example? I would say the Infinity Wars, right? Everybody thought Thanos is, and we still do, we think Thanos is an asshole. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat, he's a dick. But if you look at the reasons why he was doing what he was doing, it is somewhat of a good reason, because his reason for doing what he was doing, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it, but the reason that he was knocking like half the population away from certain worlds was because we were sincerely becoming overpopulated. We were depleting our resources and destroying the planet itself. And the sad part, guys, to this is that it's very, very true. It hits pretty hard to home there. When you think about today, like, I'm not gonna lie, especially here in America, like, we're fucking overpopulated, man. We got so many people here, and our resources are depleting, and like global warming's happening around the world now because we're just, over time, we're just becoming more and more overpopulated. That's another discussion. So just going into the anti-hero is definitely one of my favorites to write about, because you can write them in such a realistic way. Again, they are basically, in my opinion, I don't know about everyone else, but in my opinion, the anti-hero is a combination of just the protagonist and the antagonist. He or she has this aggression from the antagonist. They can come off as very violent, but they also have this good about them from the protagonist. They don't want to do it, they don't want to cause harm, but if necessary, they do. And I feel like that can be something that's very close to actual life, because people are typically like that. It's kind of like the saying where, they say don't mess with the quiet guy or the nice guy. Just because he's nice doesn't mean he doesn't have this antagonist persona about him. Doesn't mean he or she can't be violent, and it's one of those things that I love about the anti-hero. They're very unpredictable, and I feel like we as humans in life are unpredictable. So I really encourage us as writers, if you're gonna write about any hero, anti-hero is probably gonna be more close to home to you, because it's going to be actually closer to how you are, or the people you've experienced in real life. Again, the protagonist and the antagonist, not saying that we can't write it. We still write them, right? We still write about villains and heroes, but it's just one of those things. It's really hard for you yourself as a writer to feel connected to them. What I feel is like, if you can understand how the anti-hero works and how to put them on paper or whatnot, you can begin to like dissect the anti-hero and pull that antagonist away and pull that protagonist away, and really get to fine tune of like, okay, I'm pulling the antagonist away from the anti-hero, so I need to figure out the connection to why this antagonist was tied to the anti-hero. Why does he have this other part to them? It's like the yin and yang symbol, right? There's a balance. What really balances out both parts? Like, what balances out the protagonist and the antagonist? What's the middle man? And usually the middle man is just, reality, humanity. We have to be real careful as writers not to make stories so artificial, because I know, especially when people are writing like fantasy novels, like, yeah, it's fantasy, but it doesn't mean it necessarily has to be the story where you're just like, okay, I'm going to just write the most random characters. You can do that, but just make sure that they make sense and people understand them in a way where they're connected. Let me think of a good example of a character that people weren't connected to. Like, I think that was just poor writing. Poor Ryan Reynolds, but he's an awesome guy who's done Deadpool, and he's hilarious. But like the Green Lantern, there's no connection to that character, and I'm not gonna put that on Ryan Reynolds. That was just shitty writing. There's no connection for people to feel like, okay, I understand this guy, like I know what he's going through, and I could see myself being in their shoes. It was completely far left field. And if you haven't seen it, everyone just watch that movie and you'll get a good idea what I'm talking about when there's no connection. Nothing remotely even pulls you in to wanting to be friends with that character or even like wanting to sit down and have coffee with them. And that's one of the things somebody told me as a writer. You should be willing to sit down and have coffee with that person. You should sincerely feel like you can sit down and have a debate or a legitimate discussion with this person and really pick their mind and figure out why they're this way. And they will give you such a great description and be very deep about why they've made their decisions. And so it's, again, guys, it's beautiful. And again, I love talking with you guys about these characters, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are on, the protagonists and antagonists and the anti-heroes. Which ones do you guys like to write about? Who do you gravitate towards more, and what do you like to pull from them that you feel connects to your audience? Because I think that's something that, again, it's a huge thing to connect with your audience. You want your audience to emotionally be embedded into these characters so that they can feel immersed in the story. And the beautiful thing about these stories, guys, is just leaving a moral to it. I think, me personally, I love stories that have a moral to it. Like, it teaches me something in life, or it makes me realize something in my life that I have not realized yet. And I think that's something, I think I have discussed this in the past podcast, but I'm going to keep telling you guys. I think it's a really important thing to really think about what you want to leave your audience with, and and how you want them to feel after they've read your story or watched a movie or listened to it on an audiobook, either or. You really got to think about like what you want them to take away from that, and will it be beneficial to them at the end. That's what I really think about when I'm writing, is I want people to really take something with them and really help them in life. I mean, come on, we're fictional writers. We're not motivational speakers. We're not trying to write self-help books here, but still, it's one of those things you definitely want to send a message out and not leave people where they're like mindless. It was a mindless read. Like, I didn't take anything from it, because that's the reward, right? When we listen to these stories, is that we take something with it. It's not just us reading the story and, oh, these characters are so cool and I really love that character and the way they dressed or the way they sounded or the way they looked. It's so much deeper than that, everyone. It's really about when they finish that last chapter of your story or that last sentence or paragraph, they're just, wow, that really hit me. I need to really think about that and ponder on that. And so, again, guys, as always, pleasure speaking with you all. Love you all. Again, looking forward to reading many of you guys' works. I don't know who any of you are, but I'm sure I've read some of you guys' stories online or, on Amazon. And, I'm just loving our culture and writing, and I'm looking forward, again, to reading more of what we all put out there in the world and what we teach each other, because we're all teachers as writers, and it's a great feeling to know that everyone's out there sharing ideas and stories, because what better way to learn in life, right, than share knowledge with one another. So again, pleasure speaking with you guys. Love you all. Speak to you soon, and keep at it. Keep writing.
Hope you all enjoyed and had something to take away from today's discussion. To find out more about our lovely host, Patrick Starks, and even some of his writing works, go to www.paycark.com. That's www.paycark.com. Stay tuned for the next episode of Write Our Way, and have yourself a fantastic day.